An entitled Karen gets up in my face and starts screaming at me, claiming that I'm ruining her birthday while also complaining to my manager at the restaurant I'm a server at. And I've never been more frustrated and angry at anybody I've ever served in my life. Here's what happened. So I've been a server for over 6 years on and off. I only work a few times a month now, as I have a full-time 9 to 5. I expected my worst serving experiences were behind me, but last night proved me wrong. I was very busy juggling 8 tables at once. I was literally running and sweating because of how busy it was. It all started when this woman asked for a side of butter, and I told her that I would go get it for her. I had to go to the bar and dropped off some drinks. She then yelled at me about the butter, even though it had only been about 45 seconds. I said to her that I haven't even been in the kitchen yet, but I was getting it right away. I ran to the kitchen, ran out her butter, dropped it, and ran back. Now apparently, I threw the butter onto the table. It is possible I didn't do it super gently, but it wasn't meant to be aggressive or anything like that. So as a result, she complained to the manager and told him what an evil person I was. He thankfully and frankly didn't care, but assured her that it wasn't malicious. And as a result, he just continued to tell me to be nice. I kept checking up and I said to them, "How's it going? Is everything good over here? Let me know if you need anything." And they stayed mostly silent. At the end, I gave them the check, and after 5 minutes of her intently reading the check, I asked if everything was okay. And this is right about when she started getting completely out of hand. She said I ruined their entire night. She said how terrible and malicious I was, stating that my attitude ruined her birthday. She kept being hateful to a point where I just had to walk away and have my manager take care of it. Eventually, my manager took care of their bill and told her to leave. She then went to the front to berate me some more. And at that point, I finally couldn't hold it in and I just had an outburst. I looked at her square in the eye and I said, "Stop it. Please leave me alone. I have been nothing but nice to you. Just leave." And she continued throwing her nasty words at me and told my manager that I couldn't speak to her like that. My manager thankfully repeated exactly what I said and told her to leave as well. My coworkers also stepped in and demanded that she leave. Some customers joined in too after witnessing her behavior, as she tried to yell at me more that I was unprofessional while still being an absolutely terrible human being. All the tables around her assured me that I couldn't have done anything different, but I still feel at fault for some reason. I know this was an overreaction for her part, but I kind of feel unsafe and scared now. And the crazy thing is that her meal was already free since we do birthday meals. But apparently that wasn't enough. And while I didn't get any kind of tip from this entitled Karen, every table that witnessed it tipped me very well. So I guess as some kind of silver lining, this entitled Karen made me some money in the end. What an awful human being. Like seriously, this entitled Karen was completely out of line. She was not only being incredibly demanding, but it looks like she was coming into that restaurant basically looking to cause trouble with somebody, and the original poster just happened to be in her crosshairs. Like honestly, all the things that she was saying about this original poster is exactly how she was acting. She was the one being terrible and malicious, and she was the one who had an awful attitude the entire time. And I mean, her meal was already paid for and she already got supposedly chewed out by the manager as far as she knows, so there literally was no reason to go up to the front and act like an idiot. The original poster goes on to say that some people really are just miserable, and this entitled Karen definitely fits the bill. So even though this is a temporary job that you do on the side, hopefully you never have to deal with this entitled Karen ever again, because her attitude and demeanor was completely inappropriate, and she was seriously being completely unreasonable the entire night. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. My girlfriend gets irrationally upset and starts to cry anytime I go out to watch a movie or to watch TV with my family, and it's gotten to a point where this is seriously so annoying, and at this point I really don't know what to do. So this happened multiple times in the past where I have left a call with her to go do something on my own, and it's gotten to the point where I feel suffocated and that I can't do anything I want to do independently, and if I do, she just gets completely upset. I feel like a villain, and I don't know if this is justifiable. In the past, I would even watch an episode of Breaking Bad every evening with my family, which I eventually stopped doing because that was apparently excessive, and she felt like I was prioritizing a TV show over her, and it was a huge issue. So I thought to myself, okay, I can compromise. I asked her beforehand whether it's okay if I go watch a film with my family, and she said to me, "I'm not gonna answer that," as if to say no. Then a few minutes later, she asked whether I'm going or not, not, giving me the illusion of choice, to which I finally say yes. I say I love her and I will stay on call with her just so she doesn't feel alone, but I got zero response. And then I heard sobbing minutes later. It was late at night, and I wouldn't feel like saying much to her anyways in my tired state, and she was probably going to watch YouTube and barely talk. A film would honestly be perfect. I hate it because I feel like I never have a choice, despite her illusions that I should just do what I want, which she will say in a super bitter tone. Now, I get that relationships are all about compromise, but I value my family time, and I'm in a call with her all day, every day without fail, so I don't feel like I'm being unreasonable. I could have just not watched the film and saved the drama, but then I literally never get what I want, which doesn't seem fair. This is all so frustrating, and I seriously don't know what to do. In my opinion, you are not being unreasonable, but in fact, your girlfriend is being way too clingy. For some context, both of these people are 18 years old, so she's an adult, and it's time to start acting like an adult. She should be able to entertain herself at times, and you honestly have an absolute right to spend time with your family without your partner having some kind of meltdown just to keep you attached to the phone. Like, that really does sound incredibly weird. This controlling behavior seriously sounds super exhausting, and if I was in your shoes, I would not put up with that for a second. And this might be one of those cases where she cries to try and get her way, and you just keep caving in and saying, alright, I won't do it. And this is over something so benign, like this is really not that big of a deal. You're spending time with your family. It's not like you're cheating or prioritizing anything. I mean, you literally spend every waking day with her in a call. It's not like you're not spending time with her. So maybe having some kind of conversation with her and explain to her that, hey, sometimes I'm going to spend time with my family. And that doesn't mean that I don't love you. It just means that I value my family time just as much as I value you. And if she takes that the wrong way, then that really is on her. You're not doing anything wrong by going out with your family, and I really would not feel bad about this in the slightest. My boyfriend expects me to comfort him when he's upset at me for seemingly unreasonable things, and I'm so annoyed and incredibly confused, and I seriously don't know what to do. So my boyfriend is fairly sensitive and takes issues with many things I say or do to an unreasonable extent, in my opinion. During these times, he expects me to put aside my bewilderment and indignation at his getting upset over small things and blindly comfort him and shower him in emotional validation. This is extremely difficult for me because oftentimes I feel like he's being very overdramatic and unfair. Plus, I feel like I didn't do anything wrong to warrant his reaction and his need for comfort. For example, at my friend's wedding, they tossed the bouquet. I definitely tried to catch it by stepping forward and reaching out my hands. However, on my ride home, my boyfriend was upset and accused me of not trying to catch the bouquet, as well as being embarrassed or unwilling to be seen as wanting to marry him. He then requested I validate his emotions and understand why I should have made more of an effort to catch the bouquet. I was unable to do this as I was angry at him for villainizing me over something so trivial, especially when I did try to catch it. This led to an all-day fight, and this is a repeated pattern in our relationship. Another time, he was staying over at my place, and he said that he had to go back to his place later that night. He fell asleep, so I gave him some time to nap and then woke him up by saying, "You said you needed to go home, right?" And guess what? He took issue with this wording and said it made him feel like I was kicking him out. He said to me that he would have preferred if I prefaced it with something like, "I really don't want to go, but," or something like that, and that he really felt like my words and my tones hurt his feelings. I simply couldn't validate his emotions in this moment because I was so upset that I was just trying to help him out by making sure he didn't oversleep, and yet he felt like I was being rude and expected me to atone for it and comfort him. I'm not sure what to do here. It's so hard for me to put aside my feelings and comfort him in these moments, and a fight always ensues no matter what. I know his feelings are valid, but when his anger is directed at me and I feel I did nothing wrong, it's impossible for me to be the bigger person and offer comfort. What should I do? I've got to be honest, your boyfriend sounds incredibly exhausting. I mean, you are basically walking on eggshells. That's basically what's happening in your life. And that sounds absolutely obnoxious. And if I'm being honest here, it doesn't sound like he's sensitive or anything like that. It sounds like he just likes to be controlling, and he basically wants you to bend to his every whim. And that's not fair in the slightest. Like, he's being very immature and incredibly childish. If I was in your shoes and he tried to be like, "You need to comfort me right now," I would look at him square in the eyes and be like, "No, I'm not doing that." And I really don't think you should have to. Like, you're not obligated to try and validate his emotions. If he wants to choose to get offended over stupid things, well then let him. him, because the way he's acting is not normal for a 20-something-year-old, and you should not have to bend to his every demand, regardless of how he's feeling. My boyfriend thinks we have different values simply because I don't want to pick up hitchhikers, and it really has bothered me what he said, and I seriously don't know what to do. So first, a bit of context. My boyfriend has always been a traveler type, and we have both lived in a way that has put us in positions of being non-necessity hitchhikers ourselves in the past, and we both have picked up plenty of people from the side of the road. For me personally, I no longer stop to help people due to an incident that happened in 2017. Essentially, I welcomed in some travelers to take showers, use the Wi-Fi, etc. And let's just say my house burned down that night and I lost everything. It was awful. The altruism left my body that night and I feel terrible about it, but I no longer go out of my way to help people. I do not consider it a risk I can afford. This was when we started dating, so he's always known me to be against it, when actually I've been the exact same way he is my whole life up until that incident. Driving home from DC last evening, we saw two people walking on the side of the road and he started to slow down, and I was like, no, please don't. We don't have an inch of space in the truck, and we had the only two valuables I even have, my laptop and my iPad. He didn't stop, but made a comment about us having different values. Now, I'm fuming still today, and it honestly makes me upset that he would consider these strangers over me. But despite it all, I do feel terrible. I hate how horrible people are. I hate how rude and inconsiderate people are, and I've always tried to live in a way where I was never that person learning boundaries as I got older. I don't feel like myself with this level of misanthropy. I'm walking around with unconditional positive regard, just absolutely loathing people at the same time. And this is a personal value I am sensitive over, because I am not happy to have lost it. I don't understand how he is equating this to values. He is really easy to talk to, but I feel too angry right now to even try. Am I making this a bigger deal than it is? What should I do? First off, if your boyfriend wants to pick people up off the side of the road, he should do that when you're not in the car. And for him to even consider that with you in the car, after all the stuff that you've gone through, is, in my opinion, incredibly toxic. This is not a question of values, in my opinion, but instead, this is just your boyfriend being toxic. And honestly, let's get real for a second. In today's modern age of having ride-sharing apps, as well as having so many resources to get someone from point A to point B, I myself will never pick up somebody off the side of the road under the guise of, hey, I'm just trying to be a good person. Like, no, that's me being safe. People are crazy out there. There's no way I'm gonna pick up some random person. And after having literally your whole house burned down, after trying to do what you thought was the right thing to bring people in and say, hey, here's a shower, here's some Wi-Fi, you now have a very different perspective in life that your boyfriend clearly doesn't have. And I really think it's gonna take him losing everything for him to realize, oh, this isn't a value issue. This is just me wanting to be safe. And honestly, there's just no way I would ever feel safe picking up a hitchhiker. So in my opinion, picking up hitchhikers is a really good way to get yourself hurt. And it seems like he doesn't understand that risk, and it's gonna take something really bad happening in his life for him to realize, oh wait, this was probably a really bad idea. An entitled customer comes into our restaurant completely furious and angry, calling me rude and disrespectful, despite the fact that I have not done a single thing to him. And I've honestly never been more shaken up and more frustrated in my life. Here's what happened. So to start things off, there was a line out the door already before opening. We have a one party inside at a time while ordering rule for safety reasons. And it's not for COVID. We are running hot food outside all the time, and the restaurant is way too small to have a lot of people inside. The first party comes in, and the party after them tries to follow in, but I pointed at our sign, and I asked them to please wait outside until the first party is finished. Now, when I said this, the husband is already giving me an attitude and just rolls his eyes at me. This happens often, so I just kind of brush it off. They come in to order next, and I ask them if they want to order to go or if they wanted to stay here. So he answers for here. I then ask if they want to sit outside or inside, and he responds as if I'm annoying him by saying, we want to eat here. I then repeat whether they want to eat inside or outside, because you can do either one, and his response did not answer my question. So he just raises his voice at me and says, obviously I want to eat inside. I apologized to him after that, and I explained that I needed to ask these questions to seat them properly. I just continue to take their order, and I try to not let them bother me, as he is still giving me an attitude as I'm doing so. I handed the wife some napkins, some chopsticks, and a straw for their water, and the husband went to grab the straws, and I let him know I already gave his wife straws, and he just threw up his hands and sighed loudly. I was honestly so confused why he was being so rude to me. Mind you, all my coworkers are noticing his behavior and are questioning him as well. Later on, I see him trying to ask the chef something, so I asked him if he needed anything, but he just straight up ignored me. And when he did that, I assumed that he just didn't hear me. So I ask him again as he is walking towards the other side of me, looking for someone else to talk to. Clearly, he is ignoring me, but I am the only one available as everyone else is busy. I start to get upset because I don't understand why he won't respond to me in the slightest, as he is trying to get another coworker's attention and ask for napkins. Despite the fact that everyone is behind me, I say to him, "Sir, do you need anything? I can help you." Again, he just completely and totally ignores me. My coworker hears this and looks at me confused. I had enough and I say to my coworker, "Can you please give this man some napkins, since he is just being rude and ignoring my help?" I knew right then that I should have kept my mouth shut, but I felt so disrespected. And after I said this absolutely set him off and really made him freak out. He said to me, "I have not been rude. You have been rude since we walked in here." I simply say to him that no, I have not been rude to you at all, and you have been giving me an attitude since we first opened. Honestly, I can't really remember the back and forth because I kind of just blacked out, but I remember he asked me for my name, and I told him that no, I don't need to give that to you. Eventually, he went back to his seat, and I turned to my coworkers and said, "I need a minute." I went to the back and I started to cry. Thankfully though, they ended up getting their food packed and they just left. They left an awful review and it honestly crushed me. I have literally the best attitude every day. Customers tell me all the time how positive and great I am, and all my coworkers say it too. That day, I just couldn't handle the negativity. It was my first altercation in the 4 years that I've been working there. The review said I had a chip on my shoulder and should never work a customer service job ever again. Now, if there is a customer like this, we have to immediately switch positions to avoid it getting to that point. Honestly though, I just don't know why people are like this, because that guy clearly was incredibly rude, and it's so frustrating that I had to deal with it. Yeah, that guy was completely out of line. Like, he was seriously so mad that he couldn't go in there right away, and so he decided to take it out on you. That's literally all that happened here. And that's not fair for you. You've worked there for 4 years, and you've always been kind and respectful to everybody that comes in. But then this guy comes around and just completely ruins that streak. But you know what? That's a really good track record, especially when you consider that this was not your fault. This guy was just a weirdo, and honestly, I would just chalk this up as someone that will hopefully never come back again. My boyfriend wants to go 5 weeks traveling abroad with his ex-girlfriend, and I'm really confused and I seriously don't know what to do. So as the title suggests, my boyfriend wants to go to South America for 5 weeks in the summer. We're also from the United Kingdom for reference. He hasn't done heaps of solo traveling before, and it's quite a long trip to go on his own, especially somewhere so far away. I have work and I cannot take off, so it's definitely not an option for me to go. None of his mates can afford the trip and are really bad traveling partners based on previous experience. The only person who is really suitable to go with him is his ex-girlfriend. For some details about the ex, to be honest, they can hardly even be called an ex. They fancied each other for 2 years and went on a bunch of trips together. So because of that, they do travel really well together. Nothing happened between them because they both were a bit useless when it comes to making the first move, so it never really went further during this time, but they were both interested. In the end, they were just really good friends who fancied each other. Eventually, they started dating, but my boyfriend moved away, so they were long distance for about 2 months. Their first kiss was 2 months into their relationship, and a few days later, they ended up breaking up. She broke up with him because her therapist told her it wasn't good for her to be in a long distance relationship right now. Since their breakup, however, they have remained pretty close friends. They've been on a couple of trips together since, and have kissed a few times since then, but nothing further than a drunk peck on the cheek from what I can gather. They remain super positive friends who text sometimes, they never really call each other, and they see each other when they happen to be in the same place. Now, this idea of his 5 weeks of traveling has come up, and I feel anxious at the thought of him going with his ex-girlfriend. Really, not a lot is happening between them, but I know they had a very close friendship for a long time, as well as an attraction on both sides. I feel as though 5 weeks spent with your ex who you fancied for so long is simply a recipe for disaster. Now, my boyfriend has never done anything to make me not trust him. He is very honest and we have amazing communication. We have spoken about this already and he understands and agrees with many of the points that I'm making. I feel like I can't tell him what to do or what not to do though, and I don't want to come across as a controlling girlfriend. The thought of this just makes me feel so anxious and I honestly don't know what to do. This is is super sketchy in my opinion. This would honestly be a deal breaker for me. They had a fling together once or twice, and they were previously in a relationship. Even if that relationship did not last, I wouldn't really care if they were good friends right now or anything like that. I personally would feel very uncomfortable with him going on this trip with his ex-girlfriend. Like, in my opinion, I think the original poster's instinct is correct. This really could be a recipe for disaster, and I seriously think, in my opinion, that this would be a bad idea. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, use the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out in the description below and subscribe.